Okay, welcome on the call. It is a privilege, as Kelly said, that we've got some things to talk about on the equipment of the AeroMaster composting equipment. And so I always start in with going back to the basics. I always believe that if we understand, when we look at the basics, what we wanted as we started manufacturing equipment in 1993, 30 years ago last February, our goal was simply to provide a tool to produce a very high quality compost, because we discovered by going over to Europe that if we make a high quality compost, we actually can increase the manure value that we compost, as well as any other kind of waste materials, organic matter materials. We can, most times, now there are a few exceptions if it has contaminants in it or whatever, but too much contaminants, I should have said. But most times we can take something that was valued $10, $20, and $30 a ton and increase that value to well over $200 a ton. And the only way we can do it is we discovered, through the help of the people from Europe, that we can capture what's called photosynthate. And so now we built a compost turner that handles every particle, because we discovered we cannot capture photosynthate with the other types of compost turners. Many compost turners are built with this in mind, and they're going to semi-shred it and turn it and try to mix it up, etc. What we actually do is have a folding, mixing, separation system, so we can end up actually treating every particle separately. And incidentally, over about a course of 3 years, I finally noticed, as we were getting the design much better. For example, when we started in '93, we had a drum design, and then we went and redesigned it because we did some more smoke tests, and we could tell that we weren't really moving the air properly. So then we had two objectives. We wanted to handle every particle and move the air properly. Well, as we started refining that, we are in the 16th version of our drum since we started 30 years ago. But as we made those changes, it became very apparent over about the course of 3 years. By 1996, 97, we're requiring a lot less horsepower to turn the same amount of cubic yards or tons, whichever way you measure it. And it surprised us. But ever since that, as we continued to refine it, it continually takes less and less fuel to turn the same amount of compost, and consequently it takes less effort. Less effort equates to less breakdown. And so if we look at all of this, that's what's really amazing with looking at composting equipment. Now, this is one of those things that I would really like to emphasize as I start in. For people that have done this for 5 or 6 or 10 years, they already know this. But for the people starting in, I got to get a compost turner. What turner do I get? How do I know this is best? They all tell me that they've got the best machine. And isn't that such a familiar line? We all know that, okay? Well, I would like to make this comment, a couple comments that I'd like to make, and that is, first and foremost, as we look at owning a compost turner, everyone looks at the purchase price, okay? The problem is they make their decision on the purchase price. And that's a dilemma. Why? It's because in 5 years' time, if you have a machine that costs $30,000, $40,000, and $50,000 a year less operations cost, that can make up a lot of money by the time the 5 years are up. As we sent a Teleclass announcement out, wanted to make sure everyone knew that. And in this Teleclass announcement, we made it the statement, of course it varies, but how to save $50,000 a year in operations. Now that's actually, in some of our customers, that actually was not the highest amount of savings. However, it's also not always saving $50,000. Let's make that plain. But at the same token, it does save significant amount of money. So if something does save $50,000 a year, that's $250,000 in 5 years' time. That's way more than what the cost, the original purchase price is. But most people do not understand that it is not, just because it's called a compost turner, it doesn't have necessarily the same operations cost. Our machine happens to have a 2-year warranty. Let me tell you why it has a 2-year warranty and how we got there. We were looking at differentiating ourselves over the years because we noticed that we have a lot less operations cost, both in fuel and maintenance, and breakdowns are much less, et cetera, et cetera. And we had a consultant in one time. Well, this has been almost 10 years ago, not quite. And he said, you know what, we ought to check, see how much how much repairs were made in the second year of operating this compost turner. And I looked at him and says, can you explain that a little more? He says, well, let's go back 6 years and look at equipment that was 2 years old. And then let's go back 5 years and look at equipment 2 years old and take each one of those customers and record all of the repairs that they purchased from us. Now, we're not talking about tines, folks. We're talking about repairs. And so we're not talking about tines, actually. We are looking at other types of repairs, because tines wear out depending on how abrasive your materials is. That varies quite a bit. So the tines we talk about, those are the hammer blades that go on. Some people call them hammer blades. We call them tines that bolt onto the drum. And then they're replaceable, of course, and so on and so forth. But anyhow, going back to my story, we discovered we had an average of $232 per machine from ages of 24 to 24 months of age of equipment, all the way back through a 6-year span. That was phenomenal. We immediately switched and went to second year warranty. And so it has served us well ever since. We are glad that we did. But again, when a purchase is made of a compost turner, we like to educate people saying, look, it's not just about the purchase price. It's what the money that you put out in the next 5 years that makes a difference in looking at this. So from a maintenance cost perspective, we're dramatically less. From a time perspective, we typically are less, but not only are we less, we encourage our customers to hard face them so that they can continue using the same tines. And then from a fuel perspective, it's significantly less fuel. I just talked with a customer. In fact, I hope that he can join us here after a bit. I talked with a customer that just mentioned that he's got 50% less cost in his situation. So I am pleased to share this with all of you, simply because, yeah, we are the best kept secret in the composting world. And when we look at what we can do in terms of productivity, he's estimating he's significantly higher in production, and I'll let him talk to you all about that, but also in the cost savings alone. And so, yes, I wanted to make just a very, very clear point here. When deciding how to make a purchase of what kind of compost turner we want to buy, there are two things to decide. What's the purchase price and what's the operations cost for 5 years? If you add them together and one is a significantly less than the others, you might want to consider that. And so with that side of it, I have a couple more things. I'll give you just a little more history on this. Composting equipment. For the AeroMaster composting equipment, there are several requirements that are unique to that brand. And folks, I enjoy talking about this. I have never done a teleclass exactly like this, and I'm not here to just toot our own horn, but I am here to share the good news of what our customers are seeing. We end up having the only compost turner that can get out of the windrow and go down the row, or go down the row and then come back in the windrow anywhere. You hit something, all you got to do is lift it up out and continue further down. We do have drive line protection, and particularly our PT-170X is driven by a belt drive, which means that our gearbox is much more protected because of the sponge factor of our belt drive. We really like that. And again, it just continues to improve our maintenance costs and breakdown issues as we go forward. So we enjoy this kind of a thing simply because we know it's improving the lives of our customers, which is really what we focus on. And so with that, I would like to kind of open it up for questions. I have a few more things. I want to go down a different track just a moment. Can I open it up, Kelly, for questions and then see if there are any? And if there aren't, I have a few other things that I'd like to go in a different direction.
Okay, I have unmuted everybody, so if anybody would like to ask a question.
Thank you.
I have a question on your operational costs. Are you taking in the cost of the tractor because it's the pull behind, if you're comparing to a unit that's, power driven itself versus one that's driven by a tractor?
Well, so far, yes. We have actually, when we compare ourselves to self-propelled, our cost savings is dramatically less than 50%. So far, from what we know, our closest competitor in costs is approximately 80 to 85% higher in operations costs using their own propulsion versus a tractor. And I'm glad you brought that up because it is a bit of a mind shift. There's a lot of people that say, well, I just want a self-driven, self-powered machine. But at the end of the day, we're being now able to take the pull times, pull behinds, and actually out-compete for the space that you are, for the amount of volume you pass through. We are very, very happy with cost because they are even way less cost compared to a self-propelled. And man, if you got a tractor, they make thousands of those every month. For us, if you get a self-propelled, and we have built self-propelleds in the past, you get one at a time. And so if something goes wrong and something happens, and it does, everyone that has a self-propelled will tell you that, then you are dinked. There's no other power source, and now you've got to get that thing up and running. Whereas you can pull the pin, put another tractor in front of it. And so both from a operations cost point of view and from the ability to produce the most amount of product on a constricted land space, we win hands down. Now, will we ever build self-propelled? I have to be very open with you and transparent. We actually may some point. I'm not saying that, but it's very hard on me to do that knowing full well that our self-propelled costs quite a bit more than our pull types does, and it really doesn't produce a lot more volume. So I hope that made sense to you. Yeah, people say, well, with the self-propelled, I can put the rows closer together, and that is true. But if we look at two factors, one, it still should be that you have the ability to take a loader down through each side, and some people don't agree with that. but I like making money in my compost operation. And if you do, you've got to have a loader that can go on each side because you need the flexibility to work with your material should you do that. The second piece to that whole picture that I really like to talk about is our material finishes quicker. And that wouldn't be different with our self-propelled versus our pull type. I get that. But our turnover time from the time when we're finished to the time, when we start to the time we're finished, that time frame is less. And I don't know if people on this call realize this, but if you have a faster throughput, that's actually money in the bank. Money in the bank. There's so many composters out there that says, well, I got plenty of room. I don't care if it lasts, if it takes 8 months or 12 months or 13 months, I don't mind. Well, there's 2 points I want to say. You're going to lose value. I know that. A slow process evaporates more of the photosynthate sunshine energy in organic matter. And the second piece is, I don't know if anyone is familiar with, if you was a retailer or a store retailer, all of your money ends up focusing on what can I turn over quicker. You just end up making a more financial strong model for yourself if you can turn your product around faster. And not to mention the fact that your product is in higher demand from customers. So I thank you for that. Did that answer it well, or did you have any further questions?
No, that was perfect. Thank you.
You are welcome.
I got a question. This is Lee Jones in Florida. Could you kind of go over the special tractor that's required, the special transmission ratio a little bit?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that question. It's always more profitable for everyone if we have questions and answers, and I do sometimes have to say I don't know the answer, but this one I do. We want a creeper gear or an IVT or a CVT transmission. An IVT is called IVT for a John Deere tractor. They're the only tractor that has that trademarked, and it stands for infinitely variable transmission, IV as in Victor, T. That being said, the CVT is on all of the other brands. I believe that's correct. And that stands for constantly variable transmission. Either way, they are basically the same type of transmission where I can go 5 feet a minute with the throttle wide open, or I can often go over 30 miles an hour. And it's not in a, it's a very, very good transmission. We really like those. And so most of our customers are going to that kind of a transmission, IVT or CVT transmissions. However, a creeper gear does work, and many people do have those tractors. In fact, up until 2010 to 2013, hardly anybody had an IVT or a CVT. But since that time, most people have gone to that. Did that help?
Yes, thank you.
You are very welcome. Thank you for asking that. I think that's added value to this entire conversation. So, all right. Well, I'll take one more question if you have any. Okay, well, let me go to my next topic, if I may, that kind of brings in this entire perspective. I would like for you to all understand one thing. When we talk about our business, and this is kind of at the core of where we're at, I just often say it this way, and I'm going to make this very clear. Most people struggle to have a profitable composting operation. extra equipment produces quality compost at less cost in a fraction of the time. This allows our customers to experience higher profits and a more successful future. I remember one time when we were at a convention. I wasn't personally there, but one of our people were. And when the convention was almost over, it was a composting convention. There was a bunch of people there, probably in the excess of 400 or 500 people. There at the last, they had a kind of a panel, and then somebody asked the question, is there anyone here that can talk about having a very successful, profitable composting operation, just selling compost? And so it was just quiet. And then finally one of the speakers mentioned that, well, they know that Midwest Biosystems promotes that. He's not supposed to promote anyone, but he does know that they have that claim. And then someone of the customers lifted their hands and says, well, they help us. And I don't remember the exact words. These are not the exact words, but essentially he communicated the fact that not only is our operations cost less, but we're also able to produce a product that we can actually sell a higher priced compost. And so that stimulated us. That was in the late 90s. That stimulated us to do a study. We did a study, and it happened to be not conducted until 2002. And this has been, we need to do it again. But what was interesting, we tried to get a hold of 88 different customers at the time. We only got a hold of and a satisfactory response of 83 of them. The average price that 83 customers that we had, we randomly picked them all over the U.S., was $45 a ton higher than their own region. Now, back in those days, Composting News used to post every quarter what the low, medium, and high price was for each of, I think they had it separated into 7 or 8 regions. And so we always used the medium range when we compared it, and we were $45 high. Our customers averaged $45 higher than the medium range in those particular regions. So, for example, the Northwest region had a different price range than the Northeast or Southwest, et cetera, et cetera. And so when you look at that, man, that was a phenomenal thing. When you stop and start looking at it, look, because of our machine and because of our training, these people were making $45 a ton more by having a higher selling price. Well, that translated for every 1,000 tons, of course, if they sold it by the ton, which is the prices I'm quoting is per ton price here. That's $45,000 for every 1,000 tons they produced. And our average customer back in those days was around 5,000 tons. And so if you look at that, I will tell you that it is just amazing what that can be doing to make this a whole lot better with that financially, because man, that's over $200,000 a year that these average customers were making over the ones that weren't getting that price advantage. And so with this, I think I may have a customer online, and this customer, his name is Chris Phillips. Chris, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Very good. Thank you for joining us, Chris. I just would like to kind of introduce you a little bit, but you may even help me then after you start. I don't want a lot of your time, but thank you for joining us. I've asked Chris, one of our successful customers in California, to join us, kind of share from his heart to you all to what he is experiencing. And this guy has been making compost with another partner of his for quite a few years, and recently, I don't know how long ago did you purchase a PT-170X, Chris?
I believe it was a month or so after the farm show, so March, right?
So it would be
February,
March a year
March,
ago.
April. Yeah.
Would it be March a year ago? I think, right, in '92,
Yes.
or was it just
Yes.
in '93? I mean, I'm
No,
sorry, 2022 or 23?
Yeah, it was just this last year that we got the machine.
Yeah. Okay. So, Chris, tell us about your experience. These people need to just hear a candid, say it how it is.
Well, we had a 12-foot machine that we were pulling, and running at full tilt, we could run maybe 2 of the rows, 3 of the rows in a day, maybe. This new machine, we doubled our rows, which, we're pushing it, completely filled up that machine. We're doubling the rows and capacity, and we are now running about 7 rows a day. So we're figuring, I just talked to one of the other guys, we're figuring low end we're saving 45%, but we're thinking after the first couple turns we're probably saving about 50 to 70% in fuel cost.
Wow, impressive.
Yep.
And Chris, what convinced you to consider this as you think back? Of course, you heard everybody, just like the people on this call and the ones that are listening to this call eventually. Everybody says they've got the best turner out there, Chris. What made a difference for you, if you don't mind telling everyone here? Well,
I mean, what drew us to from the first place, from the research, is just the mass size of it, the weight of it, being able to pick up and go pull out of a row, or drop into a row if you had to rerun a section, or if you were blending. It really works out great for us on the blending part. But just the way, I've been around quite a few other machines before, and I would say I would pit this up against pretty much any other machine of its size, and it would be a hard push to see somebody beat it.
I do. Yeah, I appreciate that comment, and I happen to be reminded here as we are talking. Originally you just wanted a self-propelled, didn't you? And
originally, yes, we wanted a self-propelled because we just didn't want to have to deal with it. But where we're at now, we had the power units, and I've dealt with self-propelled with the wiring systems, corrosion, the radiators, just getting ate up on it. Like I said, this was the way to go.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that. So that's some of those things. How about the end product? Do you have any comments about the final outcome of the product?
Well, I mean, everybody thinks theirs is better, but I do believe that we're able to make a better product and a faster, and I say faster, I mean within a few weeks more, 3 to 4 weeks more of finishing product, faster than what we could with other machines.
Very good. Very good. When you look at it, your entire team, what are their comments? Remember you were talking about Alonzo, and you were having a discussion. Would you mind just sharing a little? I thought that was pretty neat.
Well, I mean, to the point, when you guys first brought this out, I mean, I put it in the biggest row that you would let me put it in. And it was astonishing what this machine did. And then the operators that we have running it, that ran the old machine, they just couldn't believe the savings of time, not having to fight the rows. It's been a real eye opener for making this not as hard as it needs to be.
Yeah.
And that's just putting it, politely. So.
Yeah. No, I understand, and I appreciate that. I would like to say, Chris, that we need to talk about something. We did have a few things that didn't go right at the first. Do you remember? And there's nothing wrong with just saying exactly how it is. I mean, you're the customer. And you like to say things straight. You don't spare at all. I like your candidness. Just say it.
Well, I mean, like that, we had the issue when it come in for delivery, and it was just a plugged up valve. We were able to get on the phone with you guys, and you guys are working. The delivery person was able to get it figured out. Any little issue we've had, we've been able to get on the phone. You guys have taken care of us. You know, nobody needs downtime, and you guys have always been able to get the part. You know, what few parts we've had to get from you, you guys have always got them taken care of, overnighted or whatever. But yeah, just being able to have somebody you can call and take care of it. The warranty that you guys cover on this is pretty much unheard of. So you guys have been great to work with.
Yeah. One last comment. We do have a larger pole type in our lineup, and we temporarily stopped building those until we get into a larger facility. Would you comment about the fact that even though you may even be interested in the larger one, that you were surprised that while this is the second to the largest we built, this is quite a high capacity? And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I think it surprised you guys that you could do as much as you could, even though this wasn't our largest machine. Is that fair?
Yes. Well, like I said, we were in a 12-foot machine, 12-foot well, and we basically only moved up, 2.5 foot wider. Yeah. We were able to double our capacity from a 12-foot to this new machine because we can go wider, of course, but we can also go taller. And like I said,
it's significantly taller, isn't it? It peaks it pretty sharp up there.
And it's heavy enough where you don't have the swing back from the opposite pull side. It's got enough weight behind it so you don't have a bunch of drag from the opposite power side. So it's like I said, it has doubled our capacity.
Wow. Yeah, well, I appreciate all of that. Let me open it up for questions, and then we'll probably shut this down. I do appreciate and cherish your time. I know you're busy loading compost, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Yep, I appreciate that. And you taking the time off, you're probably sitting in the truck or the loader right now just to accommodate us, and I thank you for doing that. Are there any questions for Chris before he jumps off?
Yeah, so he said it doubled the this is Lee Jones here in Florida. He said it doubled his capacity, so from 3 rows to 7 rows. How long are your rows?
We're about a quarter mile long on rows. And when I say doubled our capacity, we went from a 12-foot row by, 5 foot tall, and we went to a 14.5-foot wide row. I believe that machine's just about 7 foot tall, the well.
Yeah.
So we were
over 7 foot. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually went from a 20,000 to 45,000 is what we're pushing.
So you were running, if you did 7 rows, quarter mile long, you did a little bit over 2 miles of rows in a day then.
Yes. And right now we can run 7 rows in a day of the big rows.
Yeah, 7 quarter mile rows, that would be,
yes.
What would that be? That would be still about 2 miles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be a little over that. Yeah, I guess right under, a little brain fried this morning, so
Now, quarter miles would take 8 rows for 2 miles, so it'd be 1 3/4 miles.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like I said, this machine, and not to get off subject too much, but pretty much everybody that came to look at our old machine to pick it up, as soon as they see the big machine kind of running, they're pretty much like, well, that's a lot bigger rows than what we were planning on doing, but everybody's been pretty impressed with it. I know we have been. And like I said, I'm sure Edwin has talked to you guys about it, but the price per fuel feels high everywhere. But the price per fuel, we have cut it at least 50% in fuel costs after even running the first 2 times in a brand new row. And of course, as you run, you're burning less fuel because it's not pulling as much strain going through it. So, I mean, just in the fuel savings alone was a pretty big difference for us.
And then think about the labor to take all day to do 2 rows versus that same labor is doing 7 rows with larger rows at that. So you've got a tremendous savings in labor alone.
Yes.
I don't know if it's this way for you, Chris, but everywhere I go, labor seems to be a big factor.
Well, out here on the West Coast, you know how bad we're dealing with it out here. So.
Yeah, it's about twice as bad as Illinois, and Illinois wants to follow it somehow.
Oh, I know.
And you said you got the PT-170?
Yes, sir.
170.
Honestly, yeah,
the PT-170X, not the straight 170, but yes, that's fine.
And I mean, we wanted the large. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The width on that was 14. How big are your windrows? 14 foot by what?
We're running full tilt. I've got them trimmed up where the machine they barely squeeze through the machine, and I'm running all the way to the top of the house. So I'm 14.5 by 7 at least on my rows.
Okay.
And we're running full dairy compost. We don't have any additives. We're not running rice hulls or anything else in our rows.
Yeah. So what is your compost made up of? The composition?
Dairy compost, solely dairy compost.
Okay.
And it does the job. I mean, we've had stuff come in. I mean, of course, if it's soupy wet, you're gonna have to let it dry, but and now we're coming into wintertime, so we're having wetter stuff, clumpier stuff, and it breaks it down pretty quick. And as long as you stay up on hard facing your tines and stuff, you should have no problem. I think even with the 2 sets of tines, as long as you're staying up on them, keep hard facing them. I mean, we haven't wore out a set yet, but we're rotating our tines as often as we can.
So what they do is just for me to pitch in, they hard face one set while they're using the other. And that ends up doing is they can do that while the thing is continuing to go. So we typically sell a extra set with the machine, so that keeps you off and running.
Yeah, and that's something to do. It keeps your downtime, keeps your rows peaked up high. Because you'll know if you're running your tines down too low, it'll start flattening the peaks of your rows out, and you're just not getting good aeration into your compost.
Right. So yes, very good, Chris, and thank you, Lee, for speaking up. Anyone else have any questions? All right. Well, Chris, again, I would like to just express my gratitude. Yes, did someone speak up? All right. I would like to also say thank you to all the rest of you. Appreciate your time. We're going to shut this thing down. And thank you all. Have a wonderful, safe day. Goodbye.
Thank y'all.
Yeah, thank you.